We'll bring this meeting to order. Welcome to the August 27, 2025 meeting of the Liberty Lake Planning Commission. We will begin with our roll call
Okay, Joe Mann,
here.
Tom Sahlberg,
Here.
Jim Baumker, DG Garcia. Here. Charlie Jenks,
Here.
Phil Foyer, Gene Huschel, and Troy Mullenix.
Here.
Thank you.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll begin with our general business review of our agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? A motion to approve? Move to approve. Commissioner Jenks, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Garcia, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Minutes from August 13 meeting, everybody's had a chance to review those. I didn't see any changes. Anybody see anything that needs to be edited? I'll also entertain a motion for
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jenks, thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Garcia, thank you. I'll get to that in a moment. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We also need to address and excuse Commissioner Foyer, Commissioner Baumker, who is still healing. Commissioner Herschel as well, who is over on the coast. I have a motion to approve their absence.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jenks, Commissioner Garcia, second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we've agenda and minutes. Our workshop is on the sign code, so we will begin.
So I wanted to just bring to council's attention that we have a number of stakeholders in the audience, or at least a few stakeholders. We invited a number, and may have more showing up. The rules, planning commission's rules of procedures basically don't allow for public comments until the end, but you commissioners, if you so desire, could make a motion to allow the public to participate in the workshop.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. So we will begin with our workshop.
And so we are happy to have Lisa Ferduza with Burke Consulting here with us today, and also online we have Michelle Ellsworth. Oniza and Michelle have been doing a lot of heavy lifting on the sign code and have been working in the draft, and they're going to be presenting today. Turn it over to her.
Thank you. And for our stakeholders, if there's a particular subject you want to address, just raise your hand and we'll call you forward. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a quick PowerPoint presentation, and Michelle Ellsworth is on the virtually present. So if she can share screen. Michelle, can you share?
And Oniza, if you could speak into the microphone so it'll be picked up in the recording. Thank you.
All right, hope you can hear me now. All right, so Michelle, let's go to that. Yeah, thank you. So we have a very brief update. So in today's presentation, we're gonna just go over the objective of the sign code and what we have accomplished, and then we will go over the sign code in general. So the objective is to ensure that your sign code is clear, enforceable, and it's some of the issues that we had tried to address that reflects the community's vision. Also, the Planning Commission workshop purpose is to reflect. So we will share with you the public survey that we had worked with the city, and then update the sign code structure and overview the significant changes that we have done. So let's go to the next slide. So just to give you a recap that we had met with your stakeholders, we had met with you before. We heard your concern and we put those in an open house or online survey to gather input, and we got really good response, in our opinion, that we had 60 total responses. We put graphics, an example of on the top right side. There are some graphics that we had inserted for better understanding of what the issues were. And then we got responses. For example, the response below was relating to the sponsorship sign. And then it got a positive response from the stakeholders to allow sponsorship signs. So all of the proposals that we had, the concerns that we had identified and we had proposed solution in the open house survey, that got back with mostly positive or neutral response. So we didn't hear anything. It's like, no, that's a bad idea. So you will see those being included in the sign code. So let's go to the next slide. So this is how we have structured your sign code. Is overall, like there are going to be general standards, implementation, and things like that. But sign-wise, we have commercial and non-commercial, two categories, and every category would have permanent and temporary. And under permanent and temporary, we have general standards and then specific sign type standards. So there's so many different signs. So we wanted to make sure that there's a big umbrella of general standards, and then there is this specific sign type manufacturer. I mean, it could be monument sign, it could be A-frame sign. So having those sign-specific standards as well. And again, I mean, having permanent and temporary, that's also important. And we wanted to, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to make it clear to the Planning Commission and stakeholders that the reason for the division, commercial versus non-commercial, has to do with the requirements for content neutrality. We don't have to be content neutral with commercial signs. They have a different standard for commercial signs, but for non-commercial signs, we have to be content neutral. And just a reminder, that what that means is if you have to read the sign to know how it's regulated, it's not content neutral. So anything that doesn't fall within the category of commercial needs to be treated differently. And
Yeah, no, that's a very good clarification. And that's one of the key purposes for this sign code, that we had some court cases and we have an attorney on our team who had guided us throughout the process as well to make sure that your code is content neutral. The way to read the sign code, and you have probably seen this already. So we have the black text on your document. Those are your existing sign code. And the light blue is new that we have added. And then strike through is that something we're proposing to remove. And so this is entirely, like, it's not the same sign structure that you had before. So it's an entirely new structure, but we have moved contents from your old code and then added to it. So let's go to I think that was the last slide, right, Michelle? Yeah, so sign code updates, so major updates that we have had here, we could have like 4 broad categories that we have added new sections. And then we have refined requirements, we have streamlined some of the sections, and we have improved the usability of your sign code. It still is draft, we still need your input and discussion. But so for example, we have added some sections, some questions that your city staff have faced some issues, so we have addressed those. For example, we have added a new section for definition, and you'll see a lot of definition, and that adds clarity to your sign code. So we have more clearer standards in the form of tables, more reader friendly in the form of graphics that could relate to the sign types and regulations. So you have seen that, so we could go over the code now. And Michelle, if you can share the screen of the sign code, we could go through that as well. And you can zoom in. So you should have it open in front of you. So I'm just gonna open this at my end as well. So you see that, we're not going to go through the table of content in general, but overall the same structure that I just presented. So let's go through let's go through that table of content, Michelle, and let's go to the page where it begins. So the idea is that we could go through that and then see what are the new changes, and we have some questions tagged for you for your input as well. So Michelle, if you can zoom in a little bit more so that audience can see that as well. Yeah, I think that's good. So, I mean, we start with applicability and permit, and we have added some clarification language there. So we could go through those page by page, or what we could do, these are minor edits, so we could skip some of the minor edits. How would you like to do that?
My suggestion would be that we pause on each page and give planning commissioners or the audience, first planning commissioners and then
Yes.
the audience an opportunity to say if they have any comments or questions on that
Okay.
page.
Okay, sounds great. So on this page, Michelle, let's go on top of the page.
Sorry.
Yeah, so purpose, your purpose didn't change. You can zoom in a little bit more. Yeah. And then scroll down.
Can I
So
pause
then,
just for
yeah.
1 second? For members of the audience, there are some extra copies over on the table.
And then in this applicability section, you see some of the changes. So it's more housekeeping that it states that sign code should apply to all signs erected and maintained on properties or right of ways, because that's where your sign would generally, so in the past it was like in developments, but you have sign in the properties and right of ways. So that's how we have clarified that. And then we are also talking about a permit is required for all sign types, except they're exempt. So exemption section is added here. And then also some of the blue text that you see that are referencing to non-commercial sign applicable applications will be reviewed only with respect to sign structure and placement. So that's an important one I would like to make. What you have just heard, that being a content neutral sign means we're not looking into the message of the sign, but we're saying this, we're divvying up in terms of structure of the sign. Is that an A-frame sign? Is that a stake sign? Is that a monument sign? So we're looking at those in terms of defining the sign types. Any questions on the applicability section so far?
Yes.
Yes.
At the bottom of page 3, under permit, it states applicants must obtain all applicable permits associated with the proposed sign before construction or installing. Why do we care if they do it before construction? That's their business. I mean, if I was going to build a sign, I would check the code first and then construct it, or have a consultation with the city. then construct. Why do we care if it's constructed?
Because if they proceed without our review and it needs to be changed first, very often a sign will be mounted on a wall. But if it's not, but if it doesn't have if it's not designed appropriately for to be mounted on the structure, we may have comments on that. Again, also, one of the things that we frequently run into is signs that are much bigger than what's allowed. I don't want somebody building a sign and saying, oh,
Again, that goes to the code. If they look at the code, they should be able, Joe should be able to look at the code and say, okay, this is what I can do.
have you ever had a debate with a sign code person?
Yes, it's not pleasant.
Again, it's really to make sure that people aren't making investments or getting ahead of themselves. If we said otherwise, it just becomes a code enforcement nightmare for Sue.
The other item, if I can add to this, is the public safety measure. So sign code has certain public safety measures. So let's say if somebody is erecting a sign on a right of way that blocks the visibility, then that would be a safety issue as well.
I have a couple comments. Under section 10.3E1B, it says all signs erected or maintained on properties or right of way. What's staff interpretation of the word properties? Does that apply to all properties in the city, some properties in the city? I didn't know if staff had seen that wording and just.
It applies to all properties within the city.
I would argue to put the word all before that, just for further clarification, just personal opinion. That would be my suggestion for that. And then the second question was the last part of that section. It says this code does not apply to any governmental or non-commercial flags. Does that mean governmental flags and non-commercial flags, or does it mean any governmental signs and non-commercial flags?
No, it means any governmental flags or non-commercial flags.
So I would like to also put the word flags after governmental, just so that it can't be misinterpreted. I know it's repetitive, but that would be my suggestion for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Yeah. Thank you, Michelle, for highlighting those. Let's go to the next page. So we are at permit section 1C now, and we had that discussion started, like applicant would have to have permit, that discussion. And then on the next page, it's talking about other applicable permits may include, but are not limited to building permit, electric. So this section is more talking about, it's like, just because you have a sign permit does not waive you from getting other permits that are required by the city. So that's what it is, clarifying. And compliance with this and other applicable codes and laws. So they would, city and applicants would still have to comply with all the applicable laws. So that's that, number one. And number two is talking about regarding non-commercial sign, the content of such sign is not regulated, but the sign is subject to any time, place, and manner standards for the sign as detailed in this section. So this is more like content is not, but how long you can post, how you are going to post, those are the standards, time, place, and manner, and where you can post the signs. So those are going to be the regulations. And number three is sign that is not required a permit. So that do not require permit are listed in this. So we are just talking about the exempt permits. Any questions on that so far? Okay. So definition section, this is a new section. We have brought some of the definitions from your other, like overall definition section to the sign code, but you can also see that there are some new definitions. So abandoned sign, and then definitions for banner sign, bench sign, and we have clarified billboard sign and campus sign. So if you if you have any questions on that.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Heidi Weir. I'm with the Hub Sports
Can
Center.
you speak into the microphone so the
Sure.
record? Thank you.
Heidi Weir, I'm with the Hub Sports Center. We have a question about the way the banner is read. It's very neutral in its writing, and I'm sure that's by design. But we are wondering such things as like windscreens on fences. Would that be considered a banner? Okay. And
Oh,
so-
windscreen?
Yeah, so often you see them on the back of sporting of baseball fields, and so it's a privacy coming one way, but it blocks wind. You have a sponsor sign on one, you don't see it from the other side. But we weren't sure where that falls in here, so we are wondering if that would be a banner.
Sponsorship sign.
That's, and see, neither of them explained that, so that's why we were wondering, so.
Okay.
Good question.
And then also, would a banner be on a light pole?
So banners would be on a light pole and we actually could potentially be on but we have a category specific to banners on light poles.
Yes, okay,
And that's
we'll get to
important.
that, yeah.
That's important, yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Why did we delete the definition of community event?
Because it's not
covered elsewhere.
regulated, we changed, that was from another, that was another change that doesn't have anything to do with the sign code chapter.
But there are community event signs, right?
No, they're not.
There's
There
no
are-
community event signs.
No, those are community event signs are non-commercial signs. We can't regulate based upon content. So there are no more event signs.
So you can call them banner sign, or you can call other type
Or
of
an
sign.
A-board sign,
A-frame.
a non-commercial A-board sign, or a non-commercial stake sign, but
So initially that was my question, but I had found it in what you were just describing. But my question is, has staff encountered this? And I know they did back when I worked for the city. There starts to become kind of muddied water when you start mixing commercial in with community events. Because is it a sponsorship? Is it XYZ gas station is holding an event, but it's a community event, but it's really not. It's more of a business promotional event.
that's commercial speech. Again,
It is, but if we're going away from the content sort of thing,
well, we have defined both commercial and non-commercial signs. And if it is for a business benefit, it is considered commercial. And it's not allowed at all, other than what's allowed for commercial signs.
Okay.
They're not allowed in the right of way.
right, they're not allowed in the right of way. I'm just saying like in general, because again, it's kind of muddied water. I'm a business owner, not here in the city, but businesses sponsor things, businesses do things like that to promote themselves, even though they're trying to be a member of the community or show that they're being a member of the community. And so I just want to make sure that whatever comes of this, that's pretty well defined so that staff doesn't encounter that issue where it's like, well, is this really for a community event or is it not a community event? Because,
Community events are not regulated in here. So
no, I know, but,
if it's a business sign, it's commercial.
okay,
And so again, promoting an event at a business is commercial.
and I can see some pushback from businesses on that too, on the other side of it, going, well, wait a second, this is for a community event purpose, and well, it's not specifically defined because it's, you know,
I think the definition it addresses it.
okay, perfect. That was my comment on that, so. I'm glad because it's tough both ways as a business owner, like,
Understood, and
Yeah.
hopefully there's a lot more clarity. That was much more difficult when we were actually allowed community event versus, I agree.
yeah,
I think that the way we have parsed this makes it maybe a lot clearer.
yeah, and I think businesses are looking for that. They want to make sure that, most of them want to make sure that they're falling within, you know, the lines and maybe supporting a community event at the same time, so.
Yes. Thank you. So let's go to the next page if there is no questions on page 4. So we're already discussing about why community event is struck out, community event sign, and then you have commercial uses for clarity. And then we have construction contractor, coming soon sign, and then copy. So some of the definitions, what is copy logo, and then drive-through selection sign, district sign. So those are some definitions added for clarity. So we just wanted to see if you had any questions on any of those.
Lisa, is the definition of flag lot here the same as in other areas of the development code?
Yes.
It is. Frontage, could that not be front property line?
Well, in some cases, and this is, so we do have flag lots that both have a piece of property that is the access road. We also have what would be considered flag lots where the access is a shared easement or a shared driveway, where it's not even part of their property. And that's where we got into the trying to approach how to offer businesses that don't have any frontage on a roadway an opportunity for visibility. And so, and that was, we spent a lot of time on that, actually.
Okay.
Alright, so on that page, you've seen that we have flashing signs, some of the clarification there. On page 6. So we will have more questions coming up in the next sections for discussion, but here, incidental sign, that's not, is again, content neutrality, so we're deleting that. Any questions on that page?
Under gas station, when dealing with electric vehicles, I was kind of looking online to see if I could find a good example, but you have in there electric vehicle charging. Does that apply to electric vehicle charging that's not on a property that is a fuel station? Because that's becoming pretty common now. Say a car dealership has charging stations, or a bus parking lot or a school parking lot. How is that being defined as far as?
So this is intended to encompass all.
Okay,
So even if it's a separate electric charging,
okay,
that would also be included.
perfect. Thank you.
But maybe what we can say, gas station and electric vehicle charging station, would that be clearer?
That's what I'm wondering. Has staff seen that with other jurisdictions? Have you guys seen any of that in your sign code research, Lisa?
So that's on,
Or Amy, like, because it was a question I had later on, but then I see it under the definitions where you do spell out the electrical vehicle charging. I didn't see it later on, and so I wanted to just make sure that that was clarified for, we don't know what the future is going to hold, but there could be a time and place where gas stations no longer display just fuel prices. Now they're displaying electric charging prices, which they're apparently not doing right now because it's all on the app or, whatever.
I think that the way to do that would be to change the definition from gas station to
we have
fuel.
fueling station,
Fuel slash
Fuel.
gas station.
Okay,
Or
sure.
fueling slash gas station.
Yeah.
yeah.
okay.
And I think that probably addresses it. Again, the fuel price sign clearly
Mhm.
encompasses both.
Yeah.
So I think that's the intent, but by not including fueling in the category, it might suggest, I left that thought.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right, though, that, I mean, I drive an electric vehicle and I haven't seen any.
I haven't
like,
either.
sign.
We have one too, and it's kind of one of those things. It's like, it's probably coming at some point.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure that maybe it's in here just in case it
Yes.
does change, so that we don't have to go back and change it later, or that it's already defined.
Great, so let's go to the next page. Page 7, yeah. So this is where we have the I-90 corridor. That's an existing standard of what I-90 corridor is. So that defines it, because you would have some standards that relates to I-90 corridor. And then large scale retail sign, and the logo sign and the low intensity lighting. So those are new definitions added.
Yeah, one of the things I will say is that many of the definitions were in the definitions section of the development code, which are in a whole nother chapter. For ease of use, we moved them into the sign code, but we also added a lot of new definitions that weren't included in our original development code. Plus, there's some new terminology that we're using that require definitions. So that's why you see so many new definitions in here.
The map that's in this section that shows the corridor for I-90. If Joe comes in from Liberty Lake, is there a larger scale map that he can look at to decide whether or not he definitively is in this corridor or not?
So so we do also have this in GIS. It's defined as within 250 feet of the.
So he can plug in his property and find out if he's.
Yeah, you
Terrific.
can do this on Scout. It's typically not a question. But we'll get into later what the code says about the different sign standards for that, because we do have a question on that. And I don't think it says what we intend it to say, and we may want to clear it up. Just saying.
At least he can find out where he is.
Okay,
That's a-
should we go to the next page? Okay, page 8. So, so we are adding a new definition for master sign plan, and you will see in the standards why we have added that, because that also relates to new regulations that we had the online survey for. And then non-commercial signage, there's some clarification, non-commercial uses, that's a clarification. Off-premise sign, that's clarification. So pennant sign and placemaking sign, and we're recommending deleting portable sign. So any question on that?
Next.
So let's go to the next slide then. Okay, let's go to page 9. So primary building wall, that's something we clarified because your wall sign is depending on that. Project real estate sign, that's a new sign category that we're proposing. And then also real estate, open house, directional sign, real estate sign, and then rotating sign, secondary building wall. So we are clarifying some of those. Sponsorship sign, we have added a definition because that's going to be a new sign category. And then stake sign. So that's again, stake sign, or it's a new, not a new sign, but just adding the definition. You will see that a lot of other signs to be combined under this because of the content neutrality. Temporary sign, we clarified that. So let's see if there are any questions. Hopefully we'll get through this definition and go to some of the standards. Okay, let's go to the next page. So next page where we have general standards. So before we go to that, we have a definition for window sign. And then we have general standards. So under general standards, we have permit exempt sign. So it doesn't mean that sign would still have to comply with the city's regulations, but they just don't need a permit. So we have listed all the signs that would not need specific sign permit or sign registration. So these are your existing, all the black ones. We have added a few in the blue font. This is drive-through selection sign, real estate sign, residential freestanding sign, real estate open house directional sign, temporary window sign, and temporary non-commercial sign. So we have added those under the exemption because some of those are happening in the city anyways, and then having an exempt sign would actually be easier for you to from the code enforcement perspective.
Wait for a second, it would be, impossible for us to try and manage permitting for all the real estate signs. And reality is that what this does, is it still holds them to the standards. So we still have time, place, manner, standards associated with those signs. And so if they're in violation of those, we can still enforce on the fact that it's not in the right location. But again, it's just a pragmatic, situation. The other thing I wanted to say about just, the exempt signs, we eliminated incidental signs and we exempted all signs that are, 4 feet, which was pretty much the definition of an incidental sign. So, but the other thing is that, the other thing that I will say about that is that we need to change, or we feel like we need to change in home occupation to make that the same size as the non-commercial and this 4 square feet. It just makes it simpler to administer and is consistent with, they can have 4 square foot non-commercial signs. They should be able to have a 4 square foot home occupation sign also. So I just wanted to point that out because there is a lot of that where we're working to try and create more internal consistency with our regulations. Why is it 3 feet here and 4 feet there?
And don't the HOAs kind of
sorry?
limit some of that too? So
Sorry.
don't the HOAs kind of limit some of that too? So you can make it look like the city, is being consistent, which is great. But can't the HOAs also have further restriction on that?
Of
So,
course, HOAs can have.
so city's okay with it, HOA says no, okay. Yeah, I think that's good.
We do say no
What?
to any.
Oh, yeah.
Lisa, what is a drive-through electrical sign? Is that the menu board or could that be directional signs?
Drive-through selection sign.
So a drive-through, so it's the menu, it's a menu.
Yeah.
board.
That's a menu sign?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
And if maybe we need to put that, those words on there.
maybe so. And or directional signs?
Yeah, 2 separate things, because a lot of drive-throughs will
They
have,
are two separate
yeah,
things.
multiple signs for,
Okay.
drive through this way or what
Yeah,
have you.
and directional signs would fall within, used to call them incidental signs, they fall within the category of under 4 feet, that was always the
Yeah,
standard,
right.
so
Okay.
that's, again, simplifying,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But I like that, drive-through menu.
Menu
selection
sign.
signs, or menu signs.
All right.
Terrific.
So we are under prohibited sign now. So these are some general language, like the first one is talking about if a sign does not comply with your objective of the city or the standards of this chapter, they're prohibited. And the prohibited signs listed, so we have on the next page, page 11. So we have a list of prohibited sign, abandoned sign, of course. I mean, there is no owner of that. You had A-frame sign before under prohibited signs, so now we are striking it out because you will have A-frame sign for non-commercial and, yeah. And then bench sign for, I think we said bench sign for non-commercial, that's something we proposed. And then some of the new ones, you see, I mean, all of the existing are there, and we added electronically changeable message sign and then highway advertising sign. So those are prohibited signs. And then we struck out reader board sign from this, signage in residential areas except permitted herein. So this is more housekeeping because some of the signs you don't have to have those under prohibited sign category. We have added signs which by coloring, lighting, shape, wording, or location resemble or conflict with traffic controls. So that's a safety issue as well. Sign that creates safety hazards, so those would not be allowed. Spotlights would not be allowed. Temporary signage except permitted here, and so that's been struck out because we are talking about temporary and permanent signage throughout this document.
Quick question on that. Item K, we eliminated the definition of portable signs earlier. And now we're referring to portable signs. Shouldn't that be temporary signs?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think it should be. So I'm gonna make a note of that.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we need to bring back that definition so that it's in this. Yeah. Good catch.
I have a question on G, well, F and G, I guess. Electronically changeable message signs. Are we talking billboards or? And the reason that I ask is because then you have flashing signs, and I know that there's different rules for the signs along I-90, but many of those signs can do both. They're capable of doing both.
They're capable of doing both, but we regulate how frequently the imagery can change.
Right.
So we've got, so we're not, if you turn it on the flashing, we're gonna call you on it and it's not gonna meet our state.
But take it one step further, and signs that create a safety hazard. So not to point out any particular signs, but there is one sign along I-90 that is very bright at night. And when it does change, it draws your eye from the road to the sign, which is what it's meant to do. So is that considered a safety issue, or?
So you probably wanna file a complaint on that. And I have a feeling I know which one it is, because we've enforced on it before. We actually have gone out with the light meters and we've actually, and measured how long it was out there, and they reprogrammed it, but if it's back to that.
And that's why I was asking, because being that these signs are so easily programmable, they could say, well, it's not going to do that because we're going to fall within the code, but then they can just go in probably on their phone and app and change it in 3 seconds. And the average person driving by is not going to understand the difference on that. And so I don't know.
I will say that we have gotten complaints before that people are very sensitive to that stuff.
Yeah.
So there are people that are well aware that we regulate how rapidly it can change and how bright it can be, et cetera, and we will go out.
Okay, yeah. I might pick your brain a little bit about that later, but question on enforcement and how all that works. But yeah, I am curious because I see all these things listed here, but those particular signs could fall under any of these categories pretty easily. And so how is it defined on if it meets that or not? And maybe it meets it when they install it, but then 2 seconds later, it's an enforceable thing. And then it's wasting resources too, because the city has allowed it because it's said they weren't going to do this, but now they're having to sit there and take in complaints and go out and enforce. You guys have a lot other things
So
better to do with your time.
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but what it boils down to is the question is, do we allow electronically changeable signs or do we not?
Yep.
And that's a question for later on,
Okay.
but, and by the way, even if you change it today,
It's
The-
grandfathered.
yes.
Yep. I totally understand.
vested. technically
Yes.
vested.
Vested.
All right, let's go to the next page. And this just gives you examples of some of the prohibited signs. So one thing that we would clarify in that prohibited sign category, that bench sign, those are commercial, that's prohibited. Billboards, and then freestanding pole signs, unconcealed pole signs. So all of these categories are examples of what is prohibited. And then the next section is sign permit and registration requirements. So we are talking about permanent and temporary sign. So when it's a permanent sign, so this code proposing to have a permit process, and when it's a temporary, then it's going to be a registration process. So that's what this next section is about. So this next page, 12 and 13, is talking about what type of requirements. So table 1 is showing what are the information that it would need for a sign permit. And we wanted to group those into tables so that you don't have to flip through multiple pages to find out what's needed or not. So you can just look at this table. Not every sign would need every information. So that's why it's like whatever is applicable. A wall sign would not need a structural information. So still would need some, but not everything. So those are the things that are highlighted here. And then in table 2, temporary sign registration requirements, and that's where we wanted to make sure that temporary signs, they just requiring a full extensive sign permit would be a burden for property owners, and that would be a burden for city to process a permit, go through the permit process. So there could be a registration system online that people can go and sign in and fill out the form, or not just online, but even at the city, that you could have just fill out a form for temporary sign. So those are the information that for temporary signs that would be required.
Yeah, and I would just say that it would be an electronic application. We do everything electronically.
Yeah.
The intent of that is that if we find, because they still have to meet the time, place, manner requirements, but by requiring them to register, it gives us the ability to go back and have some communication with them, as opposed to playing whack-a-mole with the temporary signs. So that is the intent with it. Not necessarily that we're going to be processing it, but that we can go back and figure out whose sign it is. And
If there's a time limit on the sign,
that's the other,
That could be the other thing
that's the other thing that allows for us to do, is to measure the
by
time.
the way, you've got 2 days, get your sign down. Oh, no.
Or if somebody complains about it and Sue goes out, she can check, oh, no, it's still within the time frame.
That's great.
All right, so let's go to the next page. So the next topic that we wanted to bring up is sign location and placement. So where all signs shall be so located. So these are some list of sign location standards. Where your sign can, so we have added some new standards where you cannot have sign because of the public safety, like roundabouts, medians. And then also right away. So just to clarify that certain signage, awnings, and so some of those that are attached with building, that would be allowed on the right of way. But other than that, right of way signs are not allowed. Signs shall not obstruct pedestrian or accessible routes. So those are public safety standards, and signs shall not interfere with the opening of car doors. So these are mostly all like where you should not locate a sign. Should not create hazards. So all of those, just to clarify.
Lisa, is there a section in here that, and I might be backtracking a little bit. When I worked for the city as an intern, I already told you the story that one of my first projects was to drive around and look at every sign on every property and note it, and then try and enforce on it. And one of the things that we got caught up on was flags or signs placed in people's yards, whether it was in the right of way or not, that said, we have treated this lawn with an application, which is probably required by the state. And so is there anything that we need to make sure we throw in there?
Under 4 square feet.
But sometimes that's not the case, right? Have you guys encountered that?
I haven't encountered,
Okay.
I've not encountered them being more, in
Okay.
fact, they're usually pretty small.
Or they usually are. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't a problem, because that ate up a lot of time. And maybe it was just busy work, but
Oh, my goodness.
more for everyone else than me. I was only working 1 day a week, but just to make sure that that wasn't an issue, because the businesses had a huge problem with that, as you can imagine. as a business owner, gosh, I'm trying to abide by state law, but now I'm being told I can't have my sign that's required by state law in the right of way, so. Okay, I just want to make sure that's covered.
All right, so we were talking about signs allowed in the right of way in table 3. So certain types of sign can go in the right of ways. Mostly non-commercial, like A-frame sign, temporary non-commercial, that those could go in the right of way with certain standards, which are included later in the later sections. Awning, canopy, or marquee signs, those can be commercial, but those are like business signs, like when you have awning projecting to the sidewalk, but they have to maintain certain height clearance, and we have standards later. And then light pole banners, and then freestanding temporary real estate sign, temporary real estate directional sign, and stake sign. So those could go, and you see that on the right side of this, the categories of like temporary commercial sign, or whether it's non-commercial sign. So those are all identified there. So we have on number 2, we have standards like signs allowed in the right of way shall not be located in landscaped traffic islands, center medians. So again, this is the public safety standards. And then also we have certain areas in the city in figure 2 where this is identified where signs should not be located.
Yeah, and we have a minor change to this map already, so.
Right, yeah.
But I wanna give context to this. And we talked about this earlier at an earlier sign code workshop, that there is case law regarding the area between the sidewalk and the curb as being a traditional public forum for non-commercial speech. Read that, political signs. However, the areas where we're doing the mowing and we're maintaining the irrigation systems, we have an operational limitation for that. It poses a maintenance nightmare for us. And so we have identified those areas that we maintain for that purpose, the mowing, specifically mowing and irrigation, as areas where we would not allow them because of the operational impact to the city. So it's a more limited area than otherwise, but you'll see later in political signs where it's the adjacent property owner that can decide. It can be located on a person's private property or their adjacent right of way with their permission. So that's the other thing, is that we give the property owners that kind of control.
All right. Let's go to the next section, sign area calculation, and that hasn't changed much, but it's more of a clarification that how you measure your sign. So it's basically the graphics that you see below. Yeah, so that Steve's Pro Golf Shop says like you multiply A times B to have this the sign area calculation. So height and width of the sign. So it's more of a clarification. For wall sign and the blade sign, freestanding sign, those haven't changed much, not at all. Multiple sided sign, those standards haven't changed at all. So should we go to the next page? Okay. So page 17. So again, monument sign, area calculation, that's not going to change. This is a section that we are recommending to delete, sign permitted in residential zones, because those are already addressed in other sections. So. All right, let's go to the next page, section 3E2G, it's page 18. So nothing has changed on this in this section. This is more of a lighting that we're having that discussion. So you already have this illumination standards here. So it's more like compliance with with the standards. And I understand that city has some tools to measure those standards. I mean, measure those illumination. And then there are a number 2 on the next page. So we have electronically changeable sign. So then there are standards by zone and also standards when they're located on Interstate I-90 frontage. Different sign types. So those haven't changed. It's just a clarification. And there is a question for the planning commission for the blue text below. Michelle, if you scroll down, yeah. So that's the one where all electronically changeable signs are subject to the following provisions. So number 3, electronically changeable signs in the I-90 corridor must be oriented towards I-90 and located within the I-90 corridor. So I think the question for the planning commission, do you want to add?
Yeah, if I may. So it's within 250 feet of the of I-90. Many larger parcels extend beyond that. And the question has come up, does it have to be in that 250 foot? That was, my understanding is that is the intent of the regulations, that we only allow those electronic signs on the freeway to hopefully attract people into our city. But it doesn't explicitly say that if the property is located within the I-90 corridor, they're entitled to the sign. We think that the intent is that we want the electronically changeable signs in the I-90 corridor to be oriented towards I-90 and located within that I-90 corridor, so not elsewhere on the property. And that's a question for you all. That's Amy brought this up and we talked about it, and that's, I think that is the intent, but it's not clearly stated. And because we've had people ask us on that previously, we'd like to clarify that one way or the other. So that's a question for you, Planning Commission. Do you agree that that should be the standard, or?
What has staff's interpretation been to this point on that?
It has been that it has to be within the corridor and it has to be oriented to I-90. That, so
Yeah.
but again, that's our interpretation.
That seems
It's
reasonable.
an opportunity for
Clear.
you to tell us that you think differently, and we want to make sure that we get it right in the ordinance. So
I think that's fair.
Well, I think that the purpose of that sign is to get someone's attention who's driving by at 70 miles an hour. And if you go more than 250 feet away, the sign's going to have to be much larger to even get anybody's attention. So I think we should limit it to being within the corridor.
Yeah,
And
I
be
agree.
Clear in the language.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
If it's the way it's been up to this point, I would say, I would argue that other businesses might have a problem with that if now others can now put it over here where they couldn't before. So yeah, I think that's great.
I can only say how it's been since 2018.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
Yeah.
I would argue that it was that way before too.
I suspect so.
I had my hand raised, but I totally agree. I was going to say the same thing. Thank you, Troy and Joe.
All right, should we go to the next page? Okay, so page 20, so this is, nothing has changed in this section for neon signs, but then there is partially new sections, so commercial sign standards, this is where we get to some of the key sign standards, so permanent commercial sign standards. So we have some permit standards language here. So how to submit a permit process and what applies in terms of signage. And then, let's see, and then the table 6 on the next page. That's where we have the summary of like all different permanent commercial signs and what would be required. And specific sections are referenced here as well in this table.
We did have a question on one of them.
Yeah, I think
Specifically,
sponsorship sign, yeah.
So sponsorship signs, which is a new sign, and we'll get into more detail later on, but the question is, right now, we're just proposing that 80% of the interior fence area. So this is only allowed, sponsorship signs are allowed in public or semi-public, sports, facilities. And the standards are later, but the question becomes one of how do we regulate the size? And we can wait until we get to that section, but the question is 80% of the interior sign area, what was proposed, and the question is, do we want to limit the size of the sign or the percentage of the fence coverage for those? And it's, I don't know.
Lisa,
Yes.
can I ask a question? Why do we need to limit the interior fence area in any way, shape, or form? If they have enough sponsors to be able to fill up this fence area, why would we want to limit that?
That's a fine answer also.
I would agree with that.
Totally.
All right.
So no limit on the fence area then?
It's just an arbitrary number. I just don't see that we don't give any justification for it. And the one business that we have that needs to have that sponsorship is going to have to find a way to make it 80% instead of 100%.
Yeah.
And at this particular point, I'm not so sure that they wouldn't have 100%. And in my opinion, that would be a good thing.
Well, and I agree, having spent a lot of years as both a baseball umpire and a football official, I can tell you there's nothing that looks better than a lot of signage around the field. It just makes it feel better. It's totally a positive thing. So I don't think any limits are necessary.
Especially if it's Auburn.
All right, let's go to the next page. And these are all standards, all compiled in one place. So we don't have any questions here.
We have two people raising their hand. Okay. Let me see who we have here. Tom Sahlberg has his hand raised. And
Nope, not anymore.
Okay, there's other attendees. Joe Frank has his hand. Can you promote Joe Frank to a panelist, please? Joe, go for it. You have to unmute yourself, though.
Okay, sorry. I guess my only comment relating that, I agree with all the comments made. I just don't know how it would apply to, say, school fencing. So that would be where my 100% might feel wrong, I guess. Knowing where all the school fencing is, facing streets in many ways. So what does the back of it look like? Anyway, it's not a big issue to me. It's just something I was thinking about from at the same time, I would support the schools getting sponsorships, I guess, but.
Would it make sense to jump ahead to that standard section to just talk through this issue?
Yeah, Michelle, could we go to the sponsorship signs section? I think it's 3B6. It's on page 34. Yeah, right there. So these are, so we're talking about permanent sponsorship sign. And in terms of permanent sponsorship sign, we had a question for you here as well. So we were thinking that scoreboards would be one permanent sponsorship sign. And we had some standards here and we wanted to get your input on those as well. And Lisa, you might want to add.
So again, public or private not-for-profit entities owning or operating an outdoor public recreation facility limited to stadiums, arenas, fairgrounds, or athletic fields may place sponsorship signs on or within the facility if all of the following requirements are met. The signs are directed to the general public inside the facility and are not intended to be visible to the general public outside the facility when viewed from adjacent properties, any public street, or developed public trail. Permanent signs can be located on scoreboards and within the facilities. Height of sponsorship signs shall be as follows. Can you scroll up, please? The maximum height for any portion of a sign is 15 feet above grade or 30 feet above grade for scoreboards. But I think getting back to Joe, your comment, the signs are generally directed to the general public inside the facility, not necessarily outside the facility. So if you think about like a little league ball field or whatnot, having banners all along the home run fence, it's facing the field. It may be visible, it may incidentally be visible from the street, but the intent is that it's being viewed by people within the facility. So I think that's how, I think that's how we address that concern. Does that seem like it's an adequate approach to you?
Yeah, from my standpoint, I agree with you. I was just thinking, I'm not going to see the sign. It's more a matter of what the back of the sign looks like from the standpoint of a chain link fence. Like I said, I'm not very worried about it. I just at least wanted to just put it out there from, staff's perspective.
So, and I would toss the question to the planning commission. What are your thoughts on that? Regulations?
Lisa,
Yes.
I keep having my hand raised if you want to
Okay.
call on me one time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
If you would go back just one little bit on the signs, I would suggest, or at least for consideration, that instead of limited to, you would say including these signs. And right there, you've got it right.
Okay, so on the screen, okay.
I think that our point is that we're trying to open the sign code that has been pretty rough to work its way around. And instead of limiting things, we need to include them. And if the back of a sign doesn't, I don't know how that equates, but I appreciate Joe's perspective on it. I just think that the point that we're making here is that whether it's and I don't know when NIL is going to hit Ridgeline, but it's going to hit pretty quick, then sponsorship is going to be a big deal. And Joe, your business is going to be one of them. That's going to be one of the ones that's on there. So I just think that we need to include these things as opposed to try to limit them. And that's my point. Thanks.
Thank you. Great comment. Other thoughts on this question?
I think what Commissioner Sahlberg said is on point. And then I would also just throw in that, talking about the backs of banners or whatever, we're not going to notice any difference standing on a street or driving by if it's 80% or 100%. And just more work for the city. So I'm good with not restricting that.
Awesome.
Agree.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can we just get some guidance on the scoreboard sign on the same page, since we are already in this page 34 and 35? So we have placed some height of sponsorship signs shall be as follows on item number B3, E31. The maximum height of any portion of a sign is 15 feet above grade or 30 feet above grade for scoreboard. So the idea is that if the sign is part of the scoreboard, then we should regulate like in terms of how tall it goes with the scoreboard.
Right. Well, yeah, so the question is, do we want to regulate sponsorship signs on scoreboards such as attached to the scoreboard, not to exceed X feet, or not to exceed an X percentage of the size of the scoreboard? Again, thinking about the scoreboard sign as being
much higher, so it's going to be more visible. And so I think that the intent is that you want the primary purpose of the scoreboard to be a scoreboard. But again, to get that scoreboard, you also have to have reasonable sponsorship. I don't know what that number is. Is it 25% of the scoreboard?
What's the max size of a scoreboard? Is it specified?
It's not.
Okay, so maybe it would be better to specify the max size of the scoreboard, and then it can be sponsors or scoreboard or whatever. What would it matter if you allow a scoreboard that's X amount of square feet, whether it's sponsorships or scoreboard? As long as-
Again, I'm just going to make the same point. Let's not limit things by saying that we're going to have a scoreboard that's a certain X number of feet. Let's just stick with what we have here and suggest that we allow for more sponsorship. That's the point of this.
Right, but here's where I'm coming from on this. It can't be a total sign, sponsorship sign, because otherwise it would be limited to 15 feet in height. In this-
Nor can it be an issue for the public on the freeway to see that sign. I get that, Lisa.
I don't know if my point was clarified. I think that a scoreboard itself probably needs to have some sort of size limitation, but the advertising percentage or amount of square feet, I wouldn't necessarily see as an issue. Because
I agree. Agreed with Troy.
right. So like what you're saying, if the scoreboard is the scoreboard size itself isn't regulated, you could build a giant scoreboard the size of Safeco Field out there, and that would be an issue.
So here's my,
Exactly.
here's my challenge.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who has to administer this. So somebody comes in and they have, now keep in mind, sponsorship signs are limited to 15 feet. Scoreboards are limited to 30 feet. So if you have, I don't care what size it is, if 90% of it is sponsorship sign and only 10% of it is the scoreboard, you've just created a loophole for that sponsorship sign to be 30 feet high.
Right.
So what?
That's why I was asking if there was.
What's the problem with that, Lisa? And why 30 feet instead of 50 feet?
Because we don't allow 30-foot signs anywhere in the city other than those that are grandfathered.
I get it, but why not? Why not 50 instead of 30? And then you can allow for more sponsorship. This is coming. We're talking about the future, not the past. And my point is that there's going to be a need for more sponsorship. Now, I don't see that we're going to have a 12-inch scoreboard with a bunch of endorsements around it. But I do see that what we're doing is limiting instead of allowing.
Okay, but again, so now you're saying 50 feet. We have maybe a couple buildings in the entire city that are taller than 50 feet.
And that's not my point. My point was why 30 feet?
Because
Okay, that's an arbitrary, no, don't give me that because it's an arbitrary number. 50 feet, if they wanted to have a 50-foot sign, and to Troy's point, then we could have sponsorship around the side of that sign. It wouldn't make a difference.
So the 30 feet comes from, that is the maximum pole sign that you can have if you're on the freeway. We don't allow anything higher than 30 feet for signage.
Okay,
That's where the 30 feet came from. It wasn't arbitrary. It was trying to maintain some consistency with what the community has expressed as their aesthetic standard. And I don't, if that's not the case, if that is not the aesthetic standard, that is absolutely fine. It can be something other than 30 feet, but there was a basis for proposing that it not be higher than 30 feet.
and I hear what you're saying, but Safeco Field is 150 feet. We're not talking about this being Seattle. This is Liberty Lake. And if it's 30 feet or 50 feet, as long as it meets the need of the business or the school that's using it, why would we want to regulate it?
again, that's a question for the rest of the commission. What say you? I mean, we don't have to limit it. We don't have to limit it, but again, it's taking a step away from the standards that have, again, trying to recognize the standards that were in place. We have tried to expand it, but at the same time, balancing the aesthetics. So again, planning commission, this is your decision. It's your,
Yeah, I think it's a slippery slope to not be consistent with everything else that's already in place. So I don't have an issue with if a scoreboard can only be 30 feet or any of that. But I'm with Tom 100% as far as not getting into the nitty gritty of X amount of advertisement or X percentage of advertisement. To me, I think they should take full advantage of it, and because that's how a lot of these things are funded. And I would much rather see a sponsorship fund an athletic program than taxpayers or parents or anything like that. And so if that's how these programs get done, especially in the future, like Tom's talking about, I don't see a need to put a percentage or as long as the sign itself is consistent with the rest of the signage. The scoreboard is what I'm talking about. The advertisements should be allowed as needed, or sponsorships.
Yeah, no restriction on the advertising. Maximum height, that's it.
And most of the time they're not going to build something so big anyways, because it's going to be cost prohibitive for them to do so. So it's not like we're going to have a bunch of 50-foot scoreboards going up around town or whatever, but, and we're talking very limited places these could go in.
One or two places.
Right.
And if we're realistic about things, I may be unrealistic here. We don't know the economic position businesses and sponsorships will be in at that time during that period. When we look at the economy and the way things may be moving, there may be limited sponsors during that period of time. The way things are going at this moment, there may be not as many sponsors able to carry the weight of fulfilling the coverage. So we should take into all of those things, saying today there's funding, there's sponsorship money. There's a whole new breed of stuff getting ready to happen that we want to consider and not box ourselves in and not having enough sponsorship coverage when we think currently that we will. We see.
Totally agree, DG. That and if we're going to be slaves to what we have right now, think about 5 years ago where name, image, and likeness was with college sports. Okay, nobody would have predicted we are where we are. So I think that we need to allow for instead of limit sponsorship.
Well, I don't want to do anything.
Thanks for making my point.
Should we go back to that section where we were at?
yes, please. And it's about 20 after 5. So we've got about 40 minutes.
Point of clarification, the time that we have set aside for this next month, is that to continue any of this that we don't finish this evening or
I
not?
think it's what it has to be. I have other things programmed that we might be able to do a little bit on September 10th, but we will have the co-living housing and we do have the parks plan update. So
Okay.
that's gonna take most of it.
So we need to get most of this done this evening.
And the network analysis, well, we could, network analysis, we could flip flop, I guess, with the 8th if we wanted to come back and we would still potentially have time on the
Okay.
8th to do this again. So
Perfect. I just want to make sure we go through it thoroughly and page by page like we've been doing,
I
so.
agree that this was a heavy lift, first of all, and it's a lot to digest, and Amy and Lance and Sue and I have had our heads in this intensively for the last few weeks.
And there's a lot at stake for not only us as a commission and you as staff to get this done, but for the community to be able to have their voices heard and to make sure that this has gone through
Absolutely.
page by page and thoroughly, and
I-
every opportunity for anyone
I
to make a
agree.
comment, so,
And it's a significant change.
yeah. Okay,
So-
thank you.
Great. So we were on page 22, 23. So I think we had discussion on sponsorship sign on page 22. And then now we can go to page 23. So those are So the standards that we have, none of those have changed much. I think we did some changes in the window sign. So window signs so that we will have separate design requirements. So the table is basically summary of all the separate standards. So we could skip the table and go to the standard sections. So I suggest that we go to page 24. That's a new section, master sign plan. This is something that we have heard that you get the piecemeal of sign coming in from businesses. So, so we are proposing, and this has gone through the public online input as well, to have a master sign plan when multiple businesses are coming in and proposing signage. So having that, quite a few requirements there. So when business comes in, this would require to have a master sign plan that would show where different businesses and different tenants signage would be located. That should indicate what type of signage there, and then comply with specific standards for multiple business sign that we have laid out in the next sections. And then individual buildings shall comply with all applicable signage. And then approval process, master sign plan, and number E, master sign plan shall be approved through the site plan review process. So when you have a new business, they would have to go through the site planning process. So they would go through the same review process. I mean, not at the so site plan review is through the site plan review process. Amendment procedure is in place. So that's basically the master sign plan. And then number 3 is another important issue that the city has faced with multiple businesses. If you look at that graphics there, we have flag lots, parcels that can be accessed, but they don't have street frontages to have their visibility. So we discussed that it could be that parcel A, who is fronting the street, can provide an easement for parcel B so that they could have the sign in the front. I mean, in the existing code, actually parcel B could not have the ability to put their signage in the front. So that's a big shift. So those are the major, so number 3, if I could just go over a few more standards on the next page, page 25. So we are adding standards of how they can work it out. And then especially it's going to be a sign easement between those 2 parcels. So they have to have some sort of agreement so that it does not come back with like complaints and all of that. So yeah, those are two major important additions in the sign code.
Can I ask a question of staff? These master site plans, it's a 2-part question. One, is this typical in other jurisdictions to have these master sign plans for the multi-tenant buildings? And then the second part of the question would be, has staff encountered issues with this in the past, which is why we need to add all of this in here?
So the answer is yes and yes.
Okay, perfect. Because the last thing, it sounds complicated just by going through it, and for a business to come in and have to see all this, they may be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go through all this just to put a sign up, but
Not necessarily, because if it multi-tenanted,
should be in place.
you know what your storefronts are.
Yeah,
You should be able to figure out the allotment of signage. And what happens is, if you don't do that up front, then the last man in has no signage left.
right. And I like how that has been added into here in the example parcel A. So I think it's good. It comes off as being, oh my gosh, now we're gonna have to go through all of this. But if it's a point of contention now, it's better to fix it than.
It is a challenge. And what's gonna happen is when the first sign comes in for an existing, they'll probably just provide us with what they have today and what the plan is for this one. It doesn't really matter. One of the things I will say is that that is something that can be changed easily enough. But we obviously, a master sign plan,
but it has to be consistent with the sign code. We have to take development as a whole.
Right.
And unfortunately, not everybody has thought that through in advance. And, we do have a lot of immaculate signs going up. Anyhow,
All right, so should we go to the next section on the same page? Permanent commercial sign requirements. So again, this is a partially new section, and these are the sign types. So we have listed, these are the sign types that we have specific standards for. So let's go through awning. So let's go through each of them. So awning signs, so we are just adding some examples of what it means. And then marquee sign and the standards below. So these are your existing standards. So this is nothing new. It's just we are just adding more graphics. Blade sign, again, these are your existing sign standards. So nothing has changed here. Freestanding and monument sign, we have some standards here. I believe that's also part of your existing standards, but we wanted to just have reshuffled this here. So some standards is like minimum setback requirements, 10 feet from driveway, and then a minimum of 10 feet from the right of way. And then let's go to the next page. So we have some examples, and these tables are existing, so nothing has changed here. You just see that on-premise commercial monument sign and on-premise. So we just clarified that this section is talking about commercial sign. So you see that blue commercial monument sign. If no comments on this, then we could go to the next page. All right. Page 29, again, this is example of multiple business freestanding monument signs. So this is an example of monument sign. And then, so there are some efficiency. I would say that we are combining multiple business sign, and so some of the redundant language is being struck out. Freestanding on-premise sign and multiple business are permitted not to exceed the number, maximum area and height provided in table B. So this is your existing table. It's just we are moving existing codes in different places. And the number 4 on the next page. So we have location of multiple business sign. So this is an example of, like, we have 2 graphics here. So multiple business sign would have their own wall sign, but this is more talking about monument sign. And here is like when there is a public street and access, that's where your sign should be located in figure C1, and then C2. If you have 2 public street, then you could have 2 locations where sign can be placed.
I have a question on that real quick.
Yeah.
There's a lot or a few examples in the city where there is technically a private street that would be the second frontage on a corner. I'm talking over by like Home Depot. So would this
So-
fall into being able to have 2 signs or not, because it's technically not a public street, even though?
It would still be considered street, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Right. So if we scroll through this, you see that we have, we're eliminating the multiple business campus monument sign because they can be part of the multiple business signs. So we don't need to have too many different standards. So that would streamline your code. And then let's scroll down to the next page. Yeah, so this is sign visibility for multiple businesses. So that's again, this is something similar to the one that we just discussed before, parcel A and parcel B, but that was for 2 businesses, flag lots, and this is more like when you have multiple businesses. And let's go to the graphics on the next page, Michelle. Yeah, so this is where you could have some businesses that are fronting street, and there could be some business like the business A at the far top left. So that does not front any street. So yeah, so that business. So how do we ensure that every business has the visibility. So this is where it's important to have those standards, to have a group sign location. So this is where this code is recommending to have group sign. If we can scroll up, sign visibility for multiple business section. So this is where we have standards that for group of businesses, for commercial business, there has to be a common signage. And then businesses looking street visibility, lacking street visibility shall have the following options. So the business that doesn't have sign, they could have part of the master sign plan, and the multiple business monument sign shall allocate signage. And then also master sign plan shall include signage allowance for future parcels. So it's not just existing businesses, but if the business is anticipating future business, so there should be allocation for them as well. And then 1C is talking about the master sign plan shall include provisions for the potential removal and replacement of a business in the event that a business site is sold or become separate parcel. That's something that we understand that the city has faced as well. So it's more of a comprehensive way of looking at the signage. So it's giving options, and then number 2 is talking about a group of businesses may enter into an agreement for a sign easement. So that could work as well.
And I want to say that this particular section is important to call out, because without having this section that's treating this differently from off-premise commercial signage, because we do still prohibit off-premise commercial signage. This is an exception to the rule to allow for that visibility. And this is something that people have been clamoring for years in the city.
All right. Should we scroll down? Okay, let's go to the next page. Table 9, it's the same standards. And then here's the gas station or fueling sign. So we discussed that, but we'll change the title. So there's some photos, and we have some question for the Planning Commission here as well. So question for the Planning Commission: do we want to allow freestanding gas station signs as opposed to monument signs outside of the I-90 corridor? So generally within the city.
So this would technically only apply to what's existing because we don't have anything else for
Yeah.
future gas stations, right?
Michelle, can we scroll down to this
So
image?
no, that's the question is actually for future. What's existing now is already vested.
Right, so,
So.
On
but
page 33.
Again,
Michelle.
Nom already has
Yeah.
a monument sign. The Chevron does not.
but say if we pass this, then Nom could replace if they wanted to with a freestanding.
Yes.
I don't see an issue with it myself, if other ones have it, but that's just my personal opinion.
Other thoughts on it? It was just a question for us. We didn't have this category before.
Right.
So they were by definition limited to the monument sign. Tom,
Yeah.
do you have an opinion on this?
I do not.
So we have some proposed standards here in table 10, on page 34. So this outlines the standards for monument sign, freestanding sign, and fuel sign heights and square footage. So we have some additional standards. That's talking about gas station fueling signs are the only signs allowed within this use, except if there are accessory uses of the gas station, such as convenience store, restaurant, and other retail for vehicular services and repairs. And then it's talking about maximum number of total sign. So 1 monument or freestanding sign, only 1 fuel price sign, and then gas station on accessory use. And gas station when gas station is an accessory use. So we see sometimes Safeway and they have the gas stations. So these two standards would apply to the accessory use of the gas station. So any comments on that? Well, so we had discussed sponsorship sign already. So let's go to wall sign. And wall sign, so we have just added some clarification that there's a maximum of one wall sign per building, storefront, and then in case of multiple storefronts, a single multi-use building. So it's like every business will have a wall sign. So that's something. And also total allowances of the sign area that we have identified in figure 19 below. And then for a single tenant building, there are standards, and for a tenant in a building with multiple business, primary building wall is where the main building entrance is located. So it's basically where is your primary building wall? So this is clarification for that. And then also, let's go to the next page, wall signs in the Interstate 90 corridor. And that's an existing standards, nothing has changed. Number 2, wall design standards in the I-90 corridor. That's also is what is in there. It's just some clarification there. Number 4, all non-residential zones may use up to the maximum sign area detail in table 4. So this table, table 12. This table has changed a little bit. So you had a percentage before, and we had the online survey, and we wanted to see if it should be in proportion of the wall area. So that's the online survey was about, and we got positive response to that. So this is now becoming in proportion of the business instead of like having one flat percentage for all signages. That's that. So any questions on that so far? All right. Well, let's scroll down. So the rest of the standards are pretty, it's clarification. It hasn't changed much. So window sign, let's go to the window sign on page 37 and 38. So we added some examples of window sign, and then so we have some clarification, window sign. So this is where we have added a standard, like window sign shall in aggregate not exceed 30% of the area of the window on which they are displayed. So this is a percentage so that your window maintains the transparency, and also at the same time use portion of the window as for signage, and that's for permanent sign. And yeah, and graphics. So we have done some cleaning up here as well. Any questions so far?
On the window signs, just trying to determine, like, if they have 30 windows, can they have the same thing on all 30 windows? The
That's a
same
good-
graphic, the same 30% coverage area
That's,
as allowed by code?
yeah, that's the intent for this.
Okay.
Your existing code has the window sign in proportion of the wall facade.
Mhm.
So we're saying more like the approach of the window area instead of the wall area.
Mhm.
Because if you have a large wall facade and small window, and then proportion wise you get a lot of square footage for the window sign, then your window may not have any transparency if they can have the entire window with sign. So
I'm thinking more like a building that would have a whole bunch of windows and then either spell things out, one letter on each window, if it has to be the same, if it's their logo on every single window taking up X percentage.
That's a
I'm
good
not sure how
question.
clear or how in depth we want to get, but just wanting to make sure that that's clarified.
Also, the code as it is today doesn't limit the percentage on the window, but what it does is it counts the window signage towards the total signage.
Okay,
for
Well,
the,
well,
and that's
yeah.
kind of, that is problematic,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I agree.
So, and maybe it's a lesser percentage, or maybe not to exceed X percentage of the entire first facade or something like that. I don't know.
Would you recommend to have like similar to wall, like the primary building wall? So would you like to have like window on the primary building wall? So that's where the signage should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be consistent with what's allowed on a building that doesn't have as many windows. It's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
I don't know how that's specified in here, and I just want to make sure that it's clear, so
Yeah,
that like
yeah.
what you're saying.
And I hear what you're saying. And I mean, there's a part of me that says, would somebody put so much money in glazing and then,
Trust me,
but I know.
if there's a way around it, that someone will do it. And so this,
I recognize that.
Yeah.
it's,
So,
it's not business A's fault that they have less windows than business B that's next door. Kind of what I'm getting at.
So we could have some proportion of the primary building wall window and then having a percentage of that window area.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's consistent,
Mhm.
I think that would be something good to take a more in-depth look at, not right now, but to come back with and
Okay. So we
see
can
what
do
your
that.
findings are.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
other
Alright.
thoughts on that?
All right, let's go to the temporary commercial sign general standards. Yeah, we are almost halfway there. So this one is permitting and registration. So let's see, so we discussed that for temporary signs, there would be a registration process. So this table is having that summary of what type of, so all the standards, specific standards. Again, those standards are also specified under each sign type. But we had a question for the planning commission here about, let's see, is the banner sign, commercial banner on building. So should this be the same as construction or real estate wall sign? 60-day is the current code. So right now, your current code has 60 days, but we were asking construction and construction sign has 365 days, so it's like year round. And banner sign is 60 days. And the reason construction sign is 365 days, because that's like one construction can take 1 year or 2 year, and once the construction is done, then it's done. But banner sign, if you have 365 days, then the same banner sign is more like having it year round. So that's the question we have. It's like, do you want to have banner sign year round? That was a question. So right now it's 60 days.
My question is, we have apartment complexes that have banners up that says now leasing and a phone number, and they are permanent. They are not temporary. They've been up for years. So how do we regulate that? Because those are banners. They are not
Mhm.
signs,
Right.
but they stay up permanently.
Again, one of the things with this sign code, we will have registrations so that we can check timing. Is 60 days enough? I would dare say that we don't want them up for 365 days. We do want them to be temporary, but is it 60 days? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? What is it? And very often when you're trying to differentiate between a temporary and a permanent sign, you may say something like, for no longer than 180 days in a calendar year or something like that.
Yeah, because I'd argue that, you know, a lot of banners won't even last 60 days. And so is that banner, even if it's the same banner, just printed as a duplicate, does that count as one, or does it count as two separate banners? And to Joe's point, it could be that they've gone through multiple banners. It just looks like it's been there for 3 years because they keep putting up new ones. So how do you navigate that? Cause you would never know the difference, right?
Mhm.
If it's,
Which is why the argument to limit it to whatever it is, whether
Right.
it's 6 months or 3 months or 60 days or whatever.
yeah.
The other thing is that,
Lisa, please use the microphone.
I'm so sorry. The other thing is that banners get tattered and nasty looking over time in the weather.
Yep.
And so, I mean, there's a real argument that you don't want to allow it year round.
And they can also pose a safety issue should it be a windy day or a storm or something like that. So I think your approach of per calendar year, whatever that looks like, might be a better solution so that somebody couldn't say, well, it's the same, or I put up a new banner, even though it's the same banner. They just reprinted it to get around that. They just keep reapplying every 60 days. What's to say they couldn't do that? So per calendar year, whatever that looks like might be the better approach. I don't know what the restriction on days would be.
So 60 days per calendar year or something like that.
Or something like that. I don't know if the 60 is the
60
right
is
number,
maybe
but
short, particularly for like a grand opening, people like to keep
Yeah.
those up for 3 or 4 months. But again, making it temporary. Construction sign by its nature is temporary.
and it's another slippery slope because then you have somebody saying something on sale. Well, that sale could go on for 4 months. And so they have all of a sudden you have every business in town throwing a banner up, that.
So again, that's, what it is in our code today is 60 days.
Has there been pushback on that from businesses in your experience or staff
So
experience?
I think that what ends up happening is they just don't apply for permits
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they just, the banners are up year round. And when we get complaints, we enforce on it.
And the stakeholders had no problem with 60 days?
We haven't heard from the stakeholders.
So maybe this would be something that we give the public opportunity to come back with when we discuss it at the next meeting or whenever we discuss it in the future, to have some time to think about it and come back
Okay.
with their feedback.
That would be great.
Because we as a commission might come up with an arbitrary number, but if businesses are saying, no, I need 90 days or whatever.
So I see on the call, we have Candace Horn and Rob Wilson from Ace Hardware, and I know Ace uses a lot of banners, so.
Yeah.
So may want to, Rob, if you would give it some consideration and perhaps share your thoughts with us at our next meeting. We're going to talk in, I think, another minute or so about about when we'll schedule the next meeting.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So let's scroll down. I think we have another question on feather sign here.
Yeah, so this is one, and I will take this one because this one makes me crazy. We ban feather signs. If you look at the definition of feather sign and flag, they're the same thing. And so how do we allow flags but not, one suggestion maybe, and by the way, after I said, we either need to lump these into a category of for commercial, non-commercial is easier, but for commercial, pennants, so commercial pennants, flags, and feather signs. The question, my challenge is, do we want to ban them all together? Or do we want to, or do we want to allow them with the standards that apply to a banner? And by the way, after I made these, I had this conversation with Oniza and Michelle. I was driving up to Bonner Ferry going up Route 2. And I couldn't help but notice how many
signs.
businesses had multiple feather signs and pennants and banners. So I just, and I mean, that is the nature of Division Street, but again, it just like popped out at me. I'm like, ooh. So that is a question that we have to consider. And we can treat non-commercial differently than commercial, but I think, one of the things with feather signs, it's not one feather sign. It's the fact that when people do feather signs, they do 14 in a row. And it has the same effect as the inflatable man.
But they're also not necessarily commercial. It could just be a red feather sign. Doesn't have to say, come to my business or, so that's also tricky, trying to navigate.
Well, again, but we can limit number. We
You
can
could-
limit
yeah.
the number for non-commercial and commercial, if you want to do it. But again, that's the question that I have, how we've dealt with it in the past. It kind of conflicts with itself.
Mhm.
It's internally inconsistent.
So that might be something we as a commission ponder over the next few weeks.
I would say that would be, I would say that would be a great, thing for you to think about, because I didn't come up with an answer. I just came up with a question.
Let me interrupt here. We've got about 10 minutes remaining. We can either add time to this meeting or push the consideration to the next meeting. And that is, we've got 10 minutes and another 30 some odd pages to go. So
So I was hoping that, and why I suggested we might end 10 minutes early is so that we could have some conversation about scheduling. And with Onisa and Michelle to see their availability also.
Let's please do, and I move that we end the discussion now and move it on to the next meeting so that we can have the last 10 minutes with the rest of the business that we have at hand.
second. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right.
So next on the agenda.
Next on the agenda is citizen comments. Are there any comments from the citizens? Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. And we will figure out dates in just a moment. That's next on the agenda is secretary's report. And I
Yes.
would like to take the time to sort out scheduling. So September 10th, we have full living housing hearing, which I think will be a quick hearing. And we have a parks plan update. We can bump out introduction and governance chapters. We could probably carve out about an hour of that meeting to talk about sign code. Similarly, September 24th, we could bump out the updated utilities and capital facilities. We do have a network analysis workshop, but again, I think that we could carve out another hour to hour and a half with, another hour on that one. And
If
then
I
we
can
have
add.
October 8th scheduled, and that really, it can be, October 8th could be totally be just the sign code.
So I'm not going to be available on September 24th, but you can discuss internally and then we can.
Okay,
get it from
that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you guys here. So would you be available for the 10th?
Yes.
And we could do
October 10th.
September
Unfortunately.
10th.
Oh, September 10th. Yes.
We could do, I think we're probably gonna need more than 1 hour, so I think that if we could carve out an hour there, and then on October 8th, we'll devote the entire meeting again to sign code. Hopefully, we can get through it and cover some revisions and whatnot. And I've said this before to the planning commission, if it's not ready, we'll keep going until we've got it where it needs to be to take it to hearing. So
Is the parks plan update being presented by a consultant?
yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. But it's good. That's not the presentation of the parks plan. That's just the update.
Okay.
So yeah, so I've already got, and the network analysis is also being presented by a consultant, so.
Okay.
Um,
So I would argue it would be more beneficial to try and finish this all out in one meeting as opposed to having to split to two more, but if they're already scheduled and not able to move, that might be complicated.
So, yeah, it's understood, understood. And again, I think that it's important that we have that check-in on the parks. I also think it's important that we have the check-in on the network analysis because I need your feedback on that to do the transportation, to work on the transportation. So again, we're jamming up a little bit, but I do also think that we need to have time for discussion and then time for revisions. I do think that having another hour and then being able to hopefully wrap it up on the 8th would be, October 8th would be a desirable, so.
I would also maybe ask my fellow commission members if they can maybe carve out an extra half an hour on the 10th as possible extending the meeting if we're close enough to where we can work through it to see if they can plan ahead and maybe carve out that time in case we do go long and are able to get it taken care of.
Just get through it.
Right.
I will notice the meeting to be 4 to 6:30
In case we need it.
in case we need it.
Any other?
That was, the schedule was really what I wanted to say. And you're okay with, you're okay with the 10th and October 8th, which was already.
Yeah, I think those were the 2 dates you had already provided, so we have saved those, yeah.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Any commission reports? Commissioners? Mr. Saulberg?
Joe, one thing, not a report, but can we please include in our minutes Joe Frank's entire message that you guys didn't get to see that's on the webinar chat? I'm not going to read it to you, but I sent it to you by email and to Lisa and Amy and
Okay, yeah, we will make sure that it's in the minutes. And I'm happy to read it for the record if you would like me to.
we only have a couple of minutes left. That's why I used my time to say that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other planning commission reports? Entertain a motion for adjournment. Move to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Garcia, all in favor? Aye. We are done. Thank you, everyone.